the American president has received yet another slap in the face from his Kremlin idol. While Donald Trump and his envoys, shouting over logic and common sense, keep yelling that Putin wants peace and that the war is happening only because of the stubborn Ukrainians, Putin himself and his propaganda have completely stopped hiding their bloodthirsty plans. In recent weeks, the information space has been flooded with a wave of candid confessions from these so-called peace-loving occupiers.
Well, apparently that's exactly what's happening, just mowing down everything on the left bank. Next, the surging crowd will inevitably sweep across the entire expanse of Ukraine, and it will then become much easier to effectively clear the vast territory of the remaining undesirable riffraff and any lingering elements there. Yeah, it's very cynical, but it's a pragmatic move. And why should we care about this population? Nothing terrible will happen if some girl named Galia dies in colicky. In Chernihiv,
while Trump, in between chatting with turkeys and napping during meetings, is pressuring Ukraine to force it to surrender, Putin is openly and with a smile threatening Europe with war and complete physical destruction.
But if Europe suddenly wants to go to war with us and starts it, we are ready right now. There can be no doubt about that. The only question is, about what? If Europe suddenly starts a war with us, I think it will be over very quickly. This isn't Ukraine. With Ukraine, we're acting in a surgical manner there. If Europe suddenly wants to start a war with us and does so, then it's very possible a situation could very quickly arise where there will be no one left for us to negotiate with.
If you set aside the schizophrenic nonsense about surgical annihilation of entire cities and focus only on the essence, then Putin is promising to kill Europeans, and in an even more brutal way than Ukrainians. Peacefulness is just oozing from every pore. After this statement from the leader, Russian officials and propagandists felt they no longer needed to restrain themselves and broke loose. The world saw the true face of Russia and heard firsthand about its real plans, which include anything at all. Barbarity except for peace.
The EU as a structure is a criminal and terrorist organization. Therefore, we must expel anyone here who is connected to official EU structures, sever any existing relations, review any laws in place, and declare them a terrorist organization. Based on this, we will pursue them just as we pursue terrorists. That is, to declare Ursula von der Leyen, Kaja Kallas and others as terrorists. And if we find them in the restroom, we'll take them out. In other words, we are dealing with a Nazi terrorist entity.
Sounds very peaceful, doesn't it? The Americans urgently need to lift the sanctions. And Putin must definitely be invited to the White House for Christmas dinner, where they can discuss joint bombings of Europe with him. Because it's rather strange how America's statement that it no longer wants to protect its European allies coincided with this, and the sharply aggressive and threatening rhetoric from Moscow.
The war will not end until we defeat Europe morally and politically, until the deranged European elites do not stop their next mad dash toward a world war. I think that in any case, it will not be possible to achieve a final stable peace. Well, maybe the situation can be stabilized to some extent because Europe will fall apart and turn back into what it has always been.
Trump supporters on their information platforms are already openly calling for an alliance with Russia, just at the time when Putin is threatening to destroy NATO members.
Russia is a truly deeply religious Christian country that was our staunch and loyal ally in the great global World War II.
Oh, what an idiot.
Europe needs to wake up and seriously think about how it will live on, caught between a peacemaking America and a peace-loving Russia. Fortunately, Russian fascists, with their statements, are doing everything they can to wake Europe up. And not just Europe. It hasn't even been 2 weeks since the president of Kazakhstan, Tokayev, was kissing up to Moth and signing a strategic partnership when Russians started demanding the seizure of northern Kazakhstan. Why? Because it's originally Russian land.
The situation in Ukraine is clearly mirrored in Kazakhstan. There too, there are huge regions populated by Russian speakers.
There in Kazakhstan, some people believe that we, in the long run, want to, according to what they call the Ukrainian scenario, take away northern Kazakhstan from them. What do you think? Did we have such plans? Do we have any designs on this?
I believe that we have historical rights to this land. This is an industrial region. These are cities that our ancestors built. Why did we give them away?
Is there anyone who still believes that after the war with Ukraine ends, Russia will live peacefully? For them, finding a pretext to discover Nazi banderites somewhere is as easy as pie. Maybe Putin is trying for his friend Trump so that he can stop 10, 15, or even 100 wars. And finally, get his Nobel Prize. However, as far as we know, the Nobel Prize isn't awarded for colluding with an aggressor.
I believe that the ugly offspring of the Belovesh Accords should be eliminated altogether. We don't need Ukraine in any form.
You know perfectly well.
As a state at all, we need it to be rich.
Strong and good. With dumplings, with wheat, with beautiful girls as part of Russia. Yeah, can you imagine how much she eats? Galicians, return them, I emphasize, to the Poles.
Colleagues said that was simply a wonderful toast. They
have no brains.
The most cannibalistic confessions from Russians, of course, concern Ukraine. Even Goebbels and Chikatilo would be envious of their plan. Just take Putin's admission about how he held referendums in the occupied territories. The crazy old man, giving an interview to Indian media with a deranged grin, said that people had a choice. Either support Russia or abandon their homes and leave.
We gave people the opportunity to express themselves in an open referendum. Those who thought it made sense to be with Russia voted for it. Those who didn't could calmly leave for other parts. Of the Ukrainian state, please, we don't decide that.
No words.
It's impossible to even comment on this. It's just a straightforward confession of genocide. Everyone who is against the occupying army is being driven out of their own homes. Not a bad referendum.
I traveled to Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Luhansk again. Most people really do speak Russian. They speak Russian and they were very disappointed. What about in eastern Ukraine? Kiev banned this language. But they were also profoundly shocked, like, how could Vladimir Putin possibly do this to us? What exactly can you say to the many people in eastern Ukraine who have close families actually in Russia, who regularly and frequently move back and forth between Russia and Ukraine, their neighboring countries? What would you say to them?
I didn't understand the question. Shocked by what?
Yeah, you're an imbecile.
Putin doesn't understand why people were shocked by the bombing of their homes and the killing of their loved ones. The dictator's reaction completely reveals his psychological profile. He truly doesn't see anything wrong with waging an aggressive war. That's just how he is, comrade. Did Trump decide to make a deal and establish strategic cooperation?
Personally, I like the idea of reaching Transnistria. Why the hell would he need the sea? He doesn't need it. The damn sea.
Germany shouldn't exist. This needs to be understood. France shouldn't exist either.
Putin's closest advisor and the main person responsible for the ideology of Russian Nazism, Dugin, decided not to fall behind his boss and revealed the Kremlin's thermonuclear plans for Ukraine.
If we win, there will be no Ukraine. If the West wins, which is unlikely right now, Russia will use nuclear weapons to preserve our sovereignty, which means that in both cases, Ukraine will not exist.
So, in Russia's plans, there is simply no option for Ukraine to exist at all. And our American comrades are forcing us to sign some kind of truce with them, without any security guarantees.
Excellent plan, Walter. As reliable as a Swiss watch.
Trump also wants Ukraine to hand over part of Donbass to Russia without a fight. But it's not just empty land. Washington is proposing to hand over hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian citizens to occupation. It wouldn't hurt our respected overseas partners to listen to what plans the Russian fascists have for Ukrainians.
Since 2014, everyone there, from kindergarten directors to members of the government, are all Nazis. In order to cleanse them, there needs to be a proper state program of denazification led by a Russian administration. Otherwise, you'll never cleanse them.
Well, what are we supposed to do with them? And
we'll just immediately start arresting and then subsequently deporting all of them without any further delay.
Why did they even let him out of the hospital?
It's being stated absolutely openly and calmly that Ukrainians under occupation will be second-class citizens. Subhuman even less. They face filtration and repression. The Ukrainian language and culture will be banned, schools destroyed, and books burned. And this is already happening in the occupied territories. Ukrainians are being thrown into basements just for speaking Ukrainian.
We stopped at a gas station before the city, before Berdyansk. "Good evening, please tap your card," she said. I said, "Why are you speaking to me in Ukrainian?" The girl just stood there. I said, "Why are you speaking to me in Ukrainian?" She stayed silent. I asked again, "Why are you speaking to me in Ukrainian?" She said, "Because I want to." Well, if you want to, fine, that's it. At the next checkpoint, we'll send you to Adamakar, to the basement. To the basement, let's go.
To rest, here's John Silver.
Let's go rest in the basement.
And now Trump is offering to hand over Ukrainian citizens to these Nazis, so that later he can trade with them and play golf together. These Nazis, who openly admit to crimes against humanity, are the ones the American administration wants to keep. Not only without punishment, but actually to encourage them. This isn't even like the Munich Agreement of 1938. This is something more perverted, something beyond good. 99999. Russians no longer hide behind the fake fight against mythical fascists and the protection of Russian speakers. They openly say that they are waging a war of conquest in order to destroy an independent European state and commit genocide against an entire European people. Russians are no longer ashamed of being Nazis. What's the point if no one condemns them for it, but rather the opposite?
Well, to really solve this issue now that we've started, it can only be done by liquidating the Ukrainian state. There will be work to do with those people who want to live there. This work involves the security services as well as education, upbringing, integration, and so on. There are a lot of different scenarios that could be described here. That is, from a gradual approach, not like how we immediately handed out passports in Melitopol, checking and filtering these people.
If anyone in the West still hopes that they can buy off Moscow with some territories and that it will stop, let us quickly disappoint them. Russia plans to keep fighting and to fight for a long time. Now, their propaganda is already whining that there aren't enough soldiers and that people need to be forced into the army at gunpoint.
In a few weeks, the duration of this war will match that of the Great Patriotic War. When people ask, why haven't we achieved the same result? It's because not the whole country is at war. The leadership is at war. Our problem isn't at the front, our problem is in the rear. And something needs to be done about this. We need Smersh. It's not conscience we need to appeal to. There is truly nothing that convinces individuals quite as effectively as the uniquely distinctive and unmistakable auditory sensation of a precisely cocked bolt ready for action.
That doesn't really fit with Trump's statement that Russia is striving for peace, does it? You can negotiate with a maniac. He can only be neutralized by force. The sooner the Western world comes to this simple solution, the sooner peace will come to Earth.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.